He wasn't born a saint. He was born a soldier. In an age of empires, legions, and swords, one man's journey would redefine what it meant to be a hero. This is the extraordinary story of Martin of Tours, the Roman cavalryman who traded his armor for a monk's robe and became one of the most influential saints in history, a figure whose simple act of kindness would echo through centuries. Our story begins around the year 316, in the Roman province of Pannonia, modern-day Hungary. Martin was born into a world governed by military might. His father was a high-ranking officer in the Roman army, a veteran who expected his son to follow in his footsteps. From a young age, Martin was groomed for a life of service to the emperor. Duty, discipline, and the glory of Rome were the values instilled in him. But even as a boy, a different calling stirred within him. He was drawn to the stories of a new faith spreading across the empire. Christianity. This faith spoke not of conquest, but of compassion. Not of power, but of humility. This tension between his father's world and his heart's curiosity would shape his destiny. At just 15, as was the law for sons of veterans, Martin was conscripted into the Roman army. He was assigned to the elite cavalry, the Scutari. Serving as an officer, he was a good soldier, brave, disciplined, and respected by his men. He rode under the banner of the eagle, a symbol of Rome's unyielding power. For years, wore in the rigid life of a soldier to find his existence. He patrolled the frontiers of Gaul, what is now France, a land caught between Roman order and the so-called barbarian world. But beneath the polished armor and the military cloak, the young man who was drawn to Christ still lingered. His comrades noted he was different. He treated his servant more like a brother than a subordinate, and he was known for his generosity, often giving away his rations to those in need. He was a soldier of Caesar, but his heart was already leaning towards becoming a soldier of Christ. Then came the moment that would alter the course of his life forever. It was a bitterly cold winter day at the city gates of Amiens in Gaul. The wind cut like a knife, and snow blanketed the ground. As Martin rode towards the gate, he saw a sight that stopped him in his tracks. A man, a beggar, was huddled against the stone wall, shivering violently. He was nearly naked, with only a few rags to cover him. His skin blew from the cold. People bustled past him, wrapped in their warm cloaks, ignoring his desperate pleas. They saw a nuisance, a problem to be avoided, but Martin saw a human being on the brink of death. He was a soldier, and a soldier's pay wasn't much. He had no money on him to give. For a moment, he was at a loss. What could he do? Then, his eyes fell upon his own cloak. Heavy, warm military cloak, a symbol of his status as a Roman officer. It was his protection against the harsh winter. Without a second thought, Martin drew the very sword he had been trained to use for violence and did something completely unexpected. He sliced the cloak in two. He then dismounted his horse and gently wrapped one half around the freezing beggar, covering his shaking shoulders. The other half he put back on himself. Some onlookers laughed at the sight of this proud cavalry officer, now wearing a tattered hat. They thought he looked ridiculous. Others were simply stunned into silence, but Martin paid them no mind. He had done what his conscience demanded. He had shared what little he had. That act, simple and spontaneous, was a turning point. That night, as Martin slept, he had a powerful dream, a vision that would confirm his path. In his dream, he saw Jesus Christ standing among a crowd of angels, and Christ was wearing the very piece of cloak Martin had given to the beggar. He heard Jesus say to the angels, "Martin, who is still but a catechumen, has clothed me with this robe." A catechumen was someone studying to be baptized, not yet a full member of the church. The vision was a profound revelation. In clothing the beggar, he had clothed Christ himself. The message was clear. Compassion for the least of his brothers was service to God. From that moment on, Martin's life was irrevocably changed. The military world of glory and conquest no longer held any meaning for him. He continued his service for a short time, as he was bound by his oath, but his heart was no longer in it. His moment of decision came just before a battle. As the commander was distributing a war bonus to the soldiers, Martin refused his share. He stood before the emperor and declared, "Hitherto I have served you as a soldier. Allow me now to serve God. I am a soldier of Christ. It is not lawful for me to fight, accused of cowardice. Martin offered to stand on the front line of the battle the next day, unarmed, protected only by his faith. But as it happened, the enemy sent envoys to seek peace, and the battle never took place. Martin was granted his discharge. He was finally free. He immediately sought baptism and dedicated his life fully to God. He didn't seek power or position. Instead, he sought a life of simplicity and prayer. He became a disciple of Hilary of Putia, a prominent bishop and theologian. For a time, Martin lived as a hermit, seeking solitude to deepen his faith. He founded what is considered the first monastery in Gaul, a community at Liguge, where men could live a life of prayer and devotion, away from the distractions of the world. His reputation began to spread, not because of military victories, but because of his profound humility, his wisdom, and his unwavering compassion for the poor and the sick. People were drawn to this former soldier who now wielded prayer as his only weapon. Years later, the people of Tours needed a new bishop. Their choice was unanimous. They wanted Martin, but Martin had no desire for such a high office. He felt unworthy and preferred his simple, monastic life. So, when the townspeople came to get him, he hid in a barn filled with geese. The story goes that the geese, disturbed by his presence, began honking and squawking so loudly that they gave away his hiding spot. Reluctantly, Martin accepted the role, but he did it on his own terms. As Bishop of Tours, Martin was unlike any other. He refused to live in the lavish bishop's palace. Instead, he established another monastery just outside the city, at a place now called Marmahu, and lived there in a simple wooden cell. He continued to wear the rough clothing of a monk, not the fine robes of a bishop. He traveled tirelessly throughout his diocese, often on foot or by donkey, visiting the most remote villages. He didn't just preach, he lived his message. He challenged pagan practices not with force, but with patient dialogue and acts of faith. He tore down temples, but on their foundations, he built churches. He confronted injustice and stood up for the condemned, even challenging emperors. He was a shepherd to his flock, accessible to everyone, from the poorest peasant to the most powerful noble. His leadership was rooted in service, not authority. Martin's life was a testament to the transformative power of faith. He showed that true strength isn't found in a sword, but in a helping hand. His influence was immense. He became a spiritual father for a Europe in transition, as the Roman Empire began to crumble and a new Christian civilization was being born. When Martin of Tours died in the year 397 at the age of 80, his legacy was already secure. His funeral was attended by thousands. His tomb in Tours became one of the most important pilgrimage sites in all of Europe. Kings of France would carry his half-cloak into battle, believing it would bring them victory. His feast day, November 11th, became a major holiday, marking the end of the harvest and the beginning of winter. The very word chapel is said to derive from his story. The small building where his famous cloak, or capella in Latin, was kept, became known as a chapel. The story of Saint Martin of Tours is more than just a historical account. It's a timeless reminder that a single act of kindness can change the world. It teaches us that our purpose isn't defined by the circumstances we are born into, but by the choices we make. Martin was born to be a soldier of Rome, but he chose to be a soldier of Christ. He laid down his sword and picked up a cross, and in doing so, he showed that the greatest battles are fought not on the fields of war, but in the human heart. His life proves that true greatness is found in compassion, in humility, and in the courage to choose mercy over power. Thank you for watching. If this story inspired you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel for more stories of incredible historical figures, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.